Okay, so in this video, we're going to create a GUI with multiple user interactions. Okay, it means that we are going to create a more complicated GUI with more places for the user to enter data with a variety of actions. Okay, so in this example, we're going to consider a GUI which plots the trajectory of a projectile launched from a cannon. This trajectory here This trajectory depends on both the launch angle, theta, and also the initial velocity v0 of the projectile. These two equations here representing the horizontal and the vertical distance traveled from a cannon. Okay, so in these equations here, t is the time in second, v0 is the initial velocity in meter per second, theta is the angle in radians, g here is the acceleration due to gravity, which is 9.81 meter per second square. Okay, so let's get started. So to create a GUI which plots the trajectory, we'll need these following components. Okay, so we need these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 components, which consists of axis for the graph, edit text box for the angle input, edit text box for the initial velocity input, a push button to fire the cannon, static text box to label the angle text box, static text box to label the velocity text box, and panel to group the text boxes together. This panel was not necessary, but it will add nice appearance to your GUI layout. Okay, so we're just going to click and drag. Okay, so remember, open your guide editor. Okay, so we are going to add an axis here. Static text box to label. Static text box, and then edit text box, a push button, and then going to add all this inside the panel. Okay, like this, and then we're going to change all the edit text to this initial velocity, angle in degrees, fire, and enter the launch conditions. Okay, so change the object names to something meaningful so that it is easier to navigate the code. So change the edit text box to launch angle. Okay, so from your layout editor, Okay, so since your GUI has multiple components, it becomes tricky to find the corresponding callbacks in the M file based on the default name. So the default name is, okay, for example, in this edit text box. So since we have this edit 2, so it will be edit 1 and edit 2. So let's change the edit 1 to launch angle. No, it was tag here. So change the tag from edit 1 to launch angle. And then change the tag. Make sure you change the tag. And then for edit text 2 here, we change the tag from edit 2 to initial velocity. Okay, next change the static text here. String here would be an angle in degrees, and change the tag also. And the other static text, change it to change the strict content of this static text so that it will appear this initial velocity. Okay, and the panel, also change the title of that panel. Enter the launch conditions. Next, push button here, we're going to change it to fire. So instead of push button here, you change it to fire. Okay. Okay, so next step, you're going to add code to this GUI program. So currently your GUI program cannot do or execute anything since you haven't added codes to this program. It will not be as straightforward like before. So you need, in this example, MATLAB need to read the information entered into this edit text box here in the callback functions, and then give that data a name and then pass it to the fire push button callback function to create this plot. Okay, so you can also just delete this string for this edit text box, and this one also just delete, hit enter and then close. Let's save this. Let's give it a name. Okay, so you can see here, if you enter input inside here, nothing will happen because you haven't added code to this program. So for this program, MATLAB will require information. okay, pass from user, from you, okay, by entering information inside these two text box here. And then we're going to give this data a name and then pass it to this fire push button callback function, so that it will create a trajectory type plots here. Okay, so the first steps here, we're going to go to the launch angle callback function. So launch angle callback, this one here, and then we're going to add code to this function. Okay, so inside this launch code, this one here, so inside this launch angle callback function, we're going to add this code. Okay, similarly, we also need to add code to the launch velocity callback function. So this initial velocity callback function, we're going to add this code. Okay, so this code is particularly to store to pass information, okay, to store and pass information from the edit text box into the handle structure array. Okay, next we're going to pass this information to the fire push button, so that the plotting will appear. Okay, so when we push, we're just going to add it down here. Okay, let's save and try run. Let's enter 30 degrees and 100, hit fire. Okay, so you can see that the comet function, so this trajectory is drawn using this comet function here. So the comet function draws out the trajectory of the profile of the projectile, so it was dependent on this input that you entered. Okay, you might want to try another value, for example Okay, so as you have run the program a number of times, okay, you should notice that the plot resize each time the GUI run. Okay, this plot resize. Okay, for example, x-axis here is from 0, 1000, 0, 70. If I change it to another value, okay, so it will automatically resize depending on my initial launching conditions. Okay, so it makes it hard for us to compare the results, okay, our current result with our previous results when the parameters is constantly changing. So we can modify the opening functions to create an exit that never changes to alleviate this problem. And then we also add a target so that we can practice firing the cannon with a particular goal in mind. So let's navigate to the opening function and add a new code to that opening function. So navigate to the opening function. Okay, and then let's add this following code to the opening function. So this first line here will create a plot of a single point at x 275 and y 0. So the data is shown as square and the size and color are adjusted so that it's easy to see. So this is the modification of the data style. So the second line here will add a label to that target, so name as target here. The axis function force the plot to cover, okay, the axis function from 0 to 1000, x-axis, and y-axis from 0 to 500, and finally the hold on command will force additional plots to draw on the same graph. Okay, so you remember yang kita boleh guna hold on command ni to plot multiple graph on a same graph, okay, without erasing any of these existing lines. So let's try run this program. Okay, so that's our first trajectory. It's our second trajectory. So notice that our trajectory is now stayed on this plot. Okay, it doesn't disappear anymore. Okay, so we're going to practice until we hit this target here, right? Okay, however, when we want to restart this program, this GUI program, we need to close and open. We cannot clear the screen. There's no button that we can push, okay, so that it will clear the screen here. So we need to close and then run it all over again, okay, so that we get this clear screen every time you want to enter a new launch conditions. Okay, so we can modify this by adding an additional push button to reset the plot. Okay, so let's return to our GUI layout editor and add an additional push button. Okay, so this push button function is to reset the plot. Okay, so where is the push button? Okay, and then I'm going to change the tag as reset button, and then string also I'm going to change it as reset. String reset, tag reset push button. Okay, so save. Always save whenever you do a modification to your layout editor. Okay, so let's navigate to the reset push button callback. Reset push button callback. Okay, it was down here. And then add this following code. Okay, so let's try. Okay, let's try the reset button. Okay, so it will reset your plot to the opening function. Okay, so we can also add a title and axis label to the opening function and the reset push button callback. Okay, so kita boleh juga insert our title, X label and Y label to our reset push button callback function. Okay, so let's try run. Okay, so you have improvised your ready Empire GUI. So now we are going to create a much better version of this program in the next video, so that we can control the target position. So now the target is fixed here. Okay, so our next task is we're going to control this target position and maybe display an explosion once user hit this target. Okay, let's do that in our next video.